All right, well, hi, hello, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Jess,
And I'm Mackenzie.
and we are about to get into a very exciting webinar with all of you in just a few seconds here. But Mackenzie and I wanted to go through a few of the housekeeping points that we think will help you get the most out of our time here together today. So, Mackenzie, where should we start?
First, I want to draw your attention over to the questions section of your webinar console. This is the best place to get involved, get interactive, post all of your insightful questions, comments, feedback, and ideas. In fact, why don't you find the tab right now and give it a little test run by saying hi, hello, hola, whatever salutation you want to put out to the community today. And as a quick side note, that window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the webinar. Don't forget that a browser refresh should clear up most of the common issues. But if your slides or audio aren't working, feel free just to shoot us a message in the questions tab and our team will be happy to help.
All right, well, the questions tab was a great place to start because the next stop on our guided tour of your audience console is the handouts tab. Do spend some time in the handouts tab. There are so many wonderful resources and takeaways from our conversation here today. You are going to want those to follow up on this, I promise you. So go over to the handouts tab right now, start clicking on those links, download those PDFs, open those tabs, make sure you've got those set aside. Don't go anywhere just yet. Those are for later after we wrap the webinar, because right now you're going to want to stay with us. Not only do we have a very cool webinar coming your way, we also have a prize giveaway that we want you to have in mind, because that is coming at you at the end of our session. So we will have a $250 prize giveaway at the end of our webinar. Now, all winners do need to be here live and present at the webinar, and all winners must meet the prize terms and conditions. Those are linked for you in the handouts tab that we were just chatting about. So you can head on over to the handouts tab, click and scroll down, and you will find the full T's and C's waiting for you there.
Okay, Jess, I think that's everything for the housekeeping. Let's get this webinar rolling.
Let's do it.
Jess and Mackenzie, thanks for those housekeeping tips. I bet our audience didn't know that we were giving away a $250 Amazon gift card at the end of the hour. It's new for me, so I'm excited. I do think all of my friends and family heard about it and are in the audience today. Sorry, you are not eligible. My name is Cindy Davis. I'm the content director for AV Technology, and I'm thrilled to be hosting this webinar, the new UC&C Endpoints, Successful Deployment and Management. As just mentioned, this is an interactive panel, and we hope that means you too. So throughout the hour of the webcast, please submit your questions in the questions section of the console, and we'll take as many as we can throughout the hour. Next, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Atlona, Ross Video, and Yamaha UC. And next, I want to ask our panelists to introduce themselves and provide a bit more information about themselves and their company to provide a bit of context as it relates to today's discussion. Holger, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Cindy, and thanks for everybody who joined us here this afternoon. We're looking forward to a very interactive discussion. My name is Holger Stolz. I am the Senior Director of Technical Sales and Marketing at Yamaha's Division for Unified Communication. What do we do at Yamaha Unified Communications? We build the microphones, the audio devices, actually some video sound bars, which help you in your communication requirements, whether it's a conference room, whether it's a classroom, whether it's at home. We just have the devices to actually allow you for best audio and video pickup and playback in these areas. Personally, I am working with our field engineering team, so responsible for them actually helping our partners, integrators, and end user customers to install the system. So decide what system, design the right system, and install the system so that they actually experience that best audio. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Holger, and thanks for being a frequent participant on our panel. And Sean, if you would.
Sure. Thank you. So everyone, I'm Sean Burnett. I'm the Director of Commercial Distribution for Atlona, where I've spent the last 8 years of my time. Although I am an industry vet, I've spent over 20 years in the AV and UC industries. This goes back to duties of designing and selling different types of telepresence, video conferencing, and other types of room systems. But really my role now within Atlona is managing our channel partners to really help kind of put together full solutions for UC collaboration and tying in our offerings for signal distribution, control systems, and trying to accomplish, whatever application or solution the customer is looking for, and enhancing and expanding their environments to offer them a full solution set to UC and AV solutions.
Okay, thank you. And John.
Sure. How you doing, everyone? I'm John Minton. I'm the CTO and VP of the AV/UC group here at Red Thread. Red Thread is a New England-based integrated interiors company. That's a mouthful to say. Integrated interiors is that we provide technology, audiovisual, we provide lighting, we provide structured cable, carpeting, and furniture and architectural products, which are demountable walls. So basically, you give us an empty building, we can fill it up for you. The reason we believe that all these come together critical now at this point of view is we allow people to tie together technology, space, and people to drive business outcomes versus a traditional AV integrator, which we have a full service AV integrator company within our organization, that we're not just worried about what the tech goes in the wall. We worry about how it interacts and how it drives behavior, which we believe drives the culture of a company. So a little bit different than your traditional AV integrator.
And if anybody is in the Boston area, you've got to stop into Red Thread, because those offices would make me want to go into the office. And John, I want the one that overlooks the seaport. It's really an amazing space.
It's always welcome to anyone to come in and see, please.
Great. And Matt.
Hi there, I'm Matt Morgan with Ross Video. So I'm the business development manager for corporate sectors over Ross and the customers that we are working with nowadays. So if you aren't familiar with Ross, I know there's a lot of IT and AV crew here. So if you're new to Ross or it's a new brand name to you, historically we've been in the broadcast market. It's one of the most trusted names you can go with. So anything that you see and you consume daily, being the news or sports, things like that, Ross has a big presence in. But we've also noticed that there is a huge need for the broadcast market to integrate into legacy AV systems. So outside of just the typical AV rooms, I get to work with companies of all kinds and multiple different verticals within corporate to connect them with their audiences and engage their audiences and employees in different ways that are a little bit more compelling than traditional methods do. My background is in the live production world, which is how I landed at Ross, but also in the UC world where I did a lot of Cisco, Crestron, all that kind of stuff. So I get to have the fun job of kind of bringing these two worlds together and getting on calls with Cindy every once in a while and talking with some great panelists. So glad to be here again.
I will always drag you back to be on our panels. Thank you for being here. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone. So with hybrid workplace that we've been talking about for a very long time now, it seems, and the increase in distance learning firmly in place, truly unified communications and collaborations have become more important than ever. During the past couple of years, companies and institutions have been installing new collaboration spaces, ripping out the equipment that they bought in haste, online, and putting in high quality UC equipment. And companies and institutions have been installing new collaboration spaces of all kinds. And some, I think maybe to Matt's point, have installed video production studios to ensure a high quality experience for whether it's a town hall or, like the company is pitching a product. So, but what does all this really look like? And that is what we are here to discuss today. I want to start off by asking each of the panelists to share some trends or insights based on their conversations with customers. And as the consultant on this panel, I'd like to ask John to start off with kind of like the big picture of how Red Thread clients are shaping their spaces for UC&C.
Sure, Cindy. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We kind of look at the world pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic. And pre-pandemic, everyone was kind of like using traditional audio video conferencing, And sorry, I got a construction crew walking in behind me right now. It's a little distracting. We have a new building going up next door, and they're using our entranceway to get in and out. Sorry about that. But yeah, pre-pandemic, everyone was using traditional video conferencing, a little bit of Skype, but really trying to figure this all out. And as Cindy had mentioned, pandemic hit and you couldn't buy any equipment anywhere as people were rushing to figure out how to go forward and create and connect people together from their home offices, as we all know. And since then, people are now trying to pick up the aftermath. How do we go forward and create great experiences so that people that were home, that created great personalized studios like Cindy has, like Sean has, like other panelists have, that can do a great job with the lighting and sound. And that's the new standard in which our customers are asking us, how do we create experiences within our offices that gives that same quality? So people can walk into a room, have a single butt touch to go ahead, connect with their collaboration ecosystem of choice, or with another one, and go forward and make sure all the peripherals work together. It's no longer acceptable. Pre-pandemic, Microsoft had done some research. It took anywhere between 12 to 15 minutes to start up a meeting. Now, the new norm is 12 to 15 seconds. If something isn't up and running in 15 seconds, customers are complaining. And that goes back to the expectation that we all created when we were home in our private offices, having control and making sure we could get our systems up and running. So that's our biggest push from customers, is how to do that. And the last thing, how to do it in scale. How to go forward and create these environments across hundreds of rooms, not 10 rooms, not 5 rooms, but hundreds of rooms, so that they have, when people come back to the office, they can be fully functional and effective.
Wow, 15 seconds. I please, we all need that. So Holger, I'd love to hear from your perspective what you're hearing from your clients.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those 15 seconds, unfortunately, even some of our calls do take longer to start. But yes, we're working hard to get that time down. During our prep call, actually, John was actually giving even a longer list of all of the things that are being installed and which people want to work together and how they want to work together and how it all to be the best. And when I answered back to it, I said, yes, and they all want that on a very low budget. And I stick with that answer for a second here. So number one, yes, we see the same request that people want and need best audio, best video, best quality of products within their conference rooms. The whole idea today is with a post-pandemic world, we understand that not everybody is in the office anymore or in the classroom. And we need to be able to create a meeting equity for people in the room as well as outside of the room, right? So it doesn't matter whether I'm there. I need to be able to understand everything. I need to be able to be understood in the room. And I need to be able to understand what is being shared. That is simply the expectations which people have, and which is rightly. They should have it, and we should deliver on that. The one thing which I simply said to that's like, yes, unfortunately, the budgets have not necessarily grown significantly to actually fulfill all of that. We have the products, I should say that as well, right? So you can have good audio products, you can have good video products, you can have good control products, you can combine it all together. It does require some work from a design and integration perspective or for the integrator, but then you also can experience that room, which takes only 15 seconds to start the meeting.
Alrighty, we're building on that 15 building on that 15 seconds. So Matt, Ross enters the meeting room from a very different perspective, and that whole ecosystem. So what are some of the big trends that you're seeing from your clients?
Yeah, to add on to what Holger just mentioned about the room technology, it seemed like in early collaboration days, collaboration was the buzzword that we all built off of. And so you had a lot of manufacturers moving towards these are collaboration endpoints. These are collaboration rooms. And whatever manufacturer you went with is whatever you use. So it was everything from the endpoint in the room to how you chatted to internal, coworkers, how you shared documents. Everything was in this one ecosystem. So previously, the pre-pandemic technology era was the rooms dictate the technology that we're using. And now the customers, and I'm sure John deals with this a lot, it's no longer the rooms get to dictate what technology I bring into the room. And that goes back to our past panels discussions as well, right? So we're dictating what technology the room needs to work with. And what we see is that no matter what it is, we have to have that meeting equity, like Holger said, and the way that we do that has to be sharp, it has to be quick, it needs to be intuitive for people to really engage with. So what we see is it's the add-on to the conference room. So like right now, I've just wrapped up a week with one of the largest integrators in the country, and they mentioned how they're seeing that the larger conference rooms are becoming less and less, and more 6-person and under rooms are becoming the new normal. And then the add-on to that is the large open collaboration spaces that still need to have the technology, being Microsoft Teams, Zoom, WebEx, whatever it is, whatever that platform is, but it has to be on a large scale. And so that's where we see a lot of the where we get brought into the conversation. We're not always the every time, but we can bring all the video together and tie the technology together. So that's what we're saying, is that the end users are dictating what technology has to be used, and companies want more flexible spaces that are more than just a space for a meeting. It needs to be a TED Talk area. It needs to be a space to watch the World Cup and have their employees have a space where they can bring their laptops and interact and connect and engage with those in the room and on the other side of the screen. So that's kind of where we're seeing a lot of trends moving to, and it's really exciting to see how firms like John are coming in and changing up how we see the office today to make it be an environment that people want to come back to and are still able to engage with in a really positive way when they're not in the office.
I agree. I think that is an interesting trend because so no one wants to go back to the 2019 office where the technology either wasn't there or didn't work. So Sean, what insights can you share from your experiences with your clients?
One thing I'm not hearing mentioned yet has been supporting interoperability. There's so many platforms out there, from Teams to Zoom to GoToMeeting to Google Meet, BlueJeans, Cisco, and all the like, that we need to make all of these spaces that we're referring to not only easy, and giving them the easy button in some ways or means to join and easily connect and interface with the room technology that's in front of them, but to support all of these different types of platforms, regardless of how we're building those rooms out. And also really, to kind of reiterate this as well, to what Matt just said, to focus really on the end user experience. If your end user comes into those spaces and tries to use the equipment and fumbles around, or it's hard or complicated to use the equipment, they're never going to want to use it again. So to really build out these rooms with kind of that easy button solution to make it interoperable between different platforms, and to really kind of push that focus towards the end user, really will help build the adoption for these spaces as well.
Absolutely. Ease of use. I mean, ease of use has always been the rallying cry for our industry, right? But I think now more than ever, because systems would get installed into rooms and it just didn't get used. Now people expect it. So, and they expect that it has to be easy to use. So before we get into our bigger discussion,
I'd like to jump on one thing that Sean just said, which is absolutely right, is because we've changed behaviors, people being at home and having their control. When they walk into a room now, if it isn't up and right, they're making an ROI decision right at that moment. Is the effort I have to make to get this room up and functioning and all the components up and running seamlessly worth the effort to be in that room and be with other people? Or am I going to just walk up and go to a private office, or go to a desk, put on headphones, and go ahead and connect through a desktop endpoint? And that is what we're up against, is how to create those spaces where the ROI, the experience that you're creating in that room, is so good that people will say, yes, this is worth my effort. And we don't want to make it to an effort. As you said, Sean, we just want to make it work. But that's what we're up against, is that ROI mental investment that people are making. And that's our challenge.
Yep. I agree, not to mention an hour commute each way sometimes. So, there's that effort to get into the office. So before we started today, I scanned, and thank you everyone for joining. We've got so many here, and I do see a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to get to those. I scanned the titles of the folks in our audience, and I'm really pleased to see that a large percentage are from the IT department. And they're joining, this conversation, which is absolutely critical. And we also have an equal number of AV folks. And, so both sides, I mean, this is your space. So in some cases, I know departments and IT departments have merged, but not all. I know that's still a battle for some. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to discuss the role of each department in UCC. And so we're going to get a little bit down to brass tacks, and some of the questions that have come in address this. But John, because I know you, you have an IT background, and you did the UCC from the IT perspective. Lead this one off if you would, and if everybody else would join in the conversation, build off that. And when I see a pause, I'll ask a question. So, John, lead this one off if you would.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, my background is IT. I was a regional IT manager for a very large enterprise for years, and our region was $4 billion in sales in 48 locations. So pretty substantial location. And as an IT manager of that region, my biggest concern was, how do I get through the day? How do I go forward and give our end users the experience they want? And when people came in and brought in new technology and said, hey, we'd like to put this on your network, we would like to connect to your network, my initial reaction is no. I already have enough things on my plate. I have enough things I need to support. I have overwhelming end user demands. But that's not an option anymore. Everything is on the network at this point. And the convergence of AV and IT, for years, we talked about the convergence, and it is here and now. And one of the biggest challenges that I think face IT organizations is how to go forward and work with integrators and how to work with other players to do a great job of laying out a network and a quality of service so that you're going forward and you're working together and to create that end user experience. And I'll defer to some of the others to build off of that, but I understand your pain as IT directors and CIOs and CTOs on how to go forward and put these systems together.
Okay. I would just jump in there quickly because I actually also see that there is an additional layer which came on top, right? So I understand what you just said. It's like, as an IT person, somebody comes in and says, I want this new in here. Your first answer was no. And then you actually move on because, yes, it's part of the job that you take on more and more. And if I think back in our industry, right? So pre-pandemic, really, the biggest problem was like, oh, how do I manage that there is a Teams call now going over my network as well? How do I manage that there is video conferencing going on? But everybody was thinking about still the network connection from that, the computer or the appliance, which was a video conferencing system, and then just looking at, okay, there's this one stream which comes out. How do I manage that, and how do I manage that to get out of my building here and maybe into another building? I think today we are actually a step further. Like 5 years later, it's like the video cameras are suddenly all on the network. The audio devices are on the network, whichever service it is. I'm no longer just worried about, hey, I have the Teams call going out. I also have 20 video cameras in my building, which are constantly sending a video stream, whether somebody uses this or not. And I think the demand right now on IT there has grown over the last 4 or 5 years to come up and say, like, I really need to structure this. I really need to think about it before the first camera is being plugged in. How do I handle all of these cameras? Before the first microphones being plugged in, how do I handle all of these microphones? Because there's suddenly traffic at all times and that traffic is just going out everywhere unless I build it up in the right way. So I believe that from an IT perspective, the demands have even grown and will further grow over the next few years.
So before the next person picks up, I just want to interject a question that really feeds right into this. How can we integrate existing IT infrastructure with a new UC&C endpoint deployment to streamline management and avoid compatibility issues? We've got a lot of really big questions here that would take another 5 hours, but we're going to try to capture some of those. And I think Sean's going to has some ideas on that.
Yeah, that kind of tees up something I wanted to comment on. I mean, when we're seeing these additional AV devices being deployed and being more network based, obviously IT is got to be more involved. But when we're designing these networks, what we're doing now and recommending in a lot of cases is that we're segregating and we're separating. We're not having, in every case, all of the video conferencing and collaboration products and everything residing on the same corporate network that email and everything else is flowing through. And so that way we're easily able to allocate the bandwidth and also provide other types of services from the IT department for remote access to controlling these rooms, monitoring these rooms, monitoring the bandwidth specific to the AV equipment and the collaboration software and products that are being utilized, and keeping things in somewhat of a, depending on the design and size and mass of the network and company and we're talking about here, but separating and segregating these things into network designed allocations so that they're going to be able to be supported and have that bandwidth and have that capability not to be interfering with each other and causing one or the other to go down in those cases.
That actually feeds into another question or statements like many more all coming in around these similar topics. What are the scalability considerations for managing a large number of UCC endpoints as an organization grows? I know a lot of you can speak to that.
I can comment on that. I mean, scalability wise, for video endpoints, for UC software, what's nice about the future and how we design these today is that they can scale as large as we can build a network to support it, right? And I know that's kind of a gray answer, but what's nice about these kind of network-based technologies is that we can expand that network and we can add additional switch points and we could add additional ports to connect to. And bandwidth is another question. Of course, you've got to support with what you're adding to it, but in the old days, we were kind of confined to fixed endpoints that had, either ISDN or T1 or other types of fixed network capabilities. And, if you were going to go beyond that or push the limits on that, then we were, in a tough spot. Whereas now it's a lot easier to expand the footprint of our network and to build it bigger and larger as needed, as we expand a building or upgrade a building or add other facilities or kind of extend the video footprint that we're talking about. So that's, I guess, partially the answer that I think we're trying to get to, but, ultimately, maybe I'll let the other panelists chime in there too.
I actually liked something which you said there, because you said we can scale as big as we build the network. Right. So we can, but the underlying thing there is like, you need to build the network out, right? So we unfortunately still see a lot of customers who are using the old network and just plug things in, and then are wondering why quality of service isn't there, why my audio doesn't arrive in time, why my video doesn't arrive in time. So I think that the main point there is the network has to be designed. You have to look at this. There are new requirements. This is a lot of additional data which comes onto the network, and it is not. No, I'm not an IT person, but I'm saying it's not rocket science, right? It's IT, but it's just you have to design it beforehand, and create your virtual networks or your physical networks to actually keep that traffic and be able to transport that traffic. But you have to design the network.
So I'd also say, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
No, Matt. Go ahead. I've spoken up. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've actually talked to different people who are they lead IT teams, and they're charged with coming up with this new video solution for either a studio application or one of those flex spaces like we mentioned. And because they don't want things on their network, they are looking at new emerging technologies that are just coming in that have been around for forever, but they're coming into now the IT AV market, and they're using things like SDI, and they're using more traditional broadcast standards to keep something more localized. So, and the only thing that's coming in and out on the network is the integration to the Teams call or the Zoom call or whatever it needs to be. So they're localizing a lot of that video bandwidth within their traditional broadcast router, and they're using SDI. They're using even sometimes they get a little bit fancy with fiber, things like that, where you still need the IT bandwidth there. But ultimately, it's another way that people are kind of getting around this need of building a bigger pipeline or bigger network, things like that. So I've also seen those kind of things where you can use some different standards to create these environments where video is really necessary and needed, but without having to rely on IT to build a bigger backbone to support that area. So just another thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind if you have to run into that sort of situation.
So, the question about rolling out at scale, and Sean and Hogan and Mike are correct about the network. I kind of look at this as a symphony, or to go forward, because you have to do the network component, but that's the front part. That's laying out how and will you have enough capacity to do it. Then you need to also make sure you have standards in place. When you're going to roll out and scale, particularly either when you're talking about desktop or you're talking in room systems, how are you creating a standard systems? And that doesn't mean every room has to be exactly the same, but they have to be on a consistent infrastructure. So you can have people that walk into any room in any organization have the same similar experience. And then on top of it, it's the maintenance and how do you keep that room up and going? And I'm surprised any webinar that goes this long without mentioning AI. So I was the first to do it, I guess. AI, yeah. That, going forward, how do you keep these rooms and proactively managing them? And all of the, most of the major platforms on the ecosystems, Teams and Zoom and Google are adding AI platforms to help you manage them and keep those rooms up and going. Because it's as we create systems that in rooms that people want to go and use, if they go in and it's not usable, that's even worse. So I always love the old Watson commercial where the elevator repairman shows up and says, "I'm here to fix your elevator." And they say, "Well, it's not broken." And it says, "It will be tomorrow." And he's there to fix it beforehand. And that's what some of the AI capabilities that like the Microsoft Pro Portal and others are able to grab data from across large segments of their ecosystem and look and identify problems and proactively fix them before you're even aware or make you aware of it, either yourself internally, your support group, or through your partner, your integrator or your VAR partner to be able to go out and help you with that. So as I said, all those things have to come together, but for it to really work in large scale. You can get by with 10 or 12 rooms with a lot of effort, but when you need to do hundreds of rooms, you need to have it in scale.
Absolutely. And this brings up a good point, and a lot of the questions that are coming in kind of touch on this as well. 5 years ago, I don't know how long ago, I mean, AV and IT departments were all should have always been working together, but even more so today. And actually, for the audience, if you wouldn't mind, just I'd love to know first from the IT audience, how much do you work with the AV department? And for some, they might be already integrated, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your experiences from the IT folks, your experiences working with AV, and are you totally integrated? You're sitting at the same table, because that's a really important point. And these days, IT is not going to be EQing your room, right? And I don't think AV is going. As much as I've written about the OSI layer, and I have, I don't think that you guys are really paying attention, but you should. So, let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, who needs to be, some of these questions like, best practices for choosing equipment, and who needs to be at that table, that decision-making table, when you're looking at UCC choosing the equipment as well as deployment. And John, I know you're first at the table, or you should be first at the table.
Well, that's a big question, Cindy. Because in the past, it was real estate that made a lot of decisions that would touch space with an AV department or an IT organization, and they had their standard, and it was we're a Cisco shop or we're a Polycom shop, and that's what you put in, and then the pandemic happened, and we threw the deck of cards up in the air, and everything came down, and now we have executives that enjoy Zoom, but the company infrastructure is Teams, and they have certain hardware components that they like and that they've got used to, and now it's a much bigger problem, and I think an organization needs to look across the board. It's HR needs to be engaged because there are a lot of issues now with ADA and compliance, and how do you go forward and have a diverse organization, or it is definitely a group activity. It's a village, needs what takes a village to raise someone. It needs a village to create a good UC platform. So I don't have a great answer. It's like not these three people. It really is about your culture and what you're doing and how do you go forward and create a cross-platform, solution. I don't know if that helps or not, but
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Right.
And if anybody
So
wants to add to
everybody
that,
everybody who is involved, right? So if I'm an IT person and I put something on the network, I better if I'm an AV person and I put something on the network, I better have an IT person there, because otherwise he's going to uh, uh, stop me or whatever else in a few weeks and say, like, what happened here with my network, right? So I believe that everybody in the organization who is at the end of the day involved in it, on the technical perspective, I agree with John on an HR perspective, on an executive perspective, on a finance perspective, because who's paying for it at the end of the day, right? So all of these people need to be in the room, and making a decision just like, oh, I'm going to buy and put any kind of vendor name behind it from an AV person will not fly, because if you don't have the buy-in from the other people, it's not going to work. So everybody involved needs to be on the table.
absolutely. Moving on just a little bit, it also comes down to use case. And Matt, you were talking earlier about, they might have a TED Talks type scenario, and there's multi-purpose rooms. I don't think we're going to be going into an office in the next few years that is being designed from the ground up that has the conference room and the 3 meeting rooms. The spaces look very different now. So let's talk a little bit about that. The different types of spaces that really are part of that UC.
Yeah, I've what I love about the evolution of a lot of the building design consultants that can do the whole package is that they really are they put their ideas into practice for their own teams to see and test out. And when you go visit those places, you can see it in motion. So I've been able to do this with a few different companies and also see a few customers go in on it. But basically, you have a lot of people who are leveraging those flex spaces where it's open environment. And instead of the cubicle farms of yesteryears, they're almost neighborhoods and pockets within a space. So maybe it's a open concept with desks or chairs, and you can reserve those chairs, or spaces where they're leveraging the endpoints and also using like noise cancellation around them to be able to walk into a space where it's in the open, but when you're really outside that space, you can't hear what's going on, and when you're inside the space, you're not being affected by what's happening around you. But you're able to have this stand-up meeting with somebody on the other side of a screen in another office or when they're at home or anything like that. So there's this new kind of way to leverage technology and put video almost anywhere to make it more seamless, make it more engaging, and also just more part of a natural workflow where it's in the open and feels inviting, feels collaborative. That's less restricting by I walked by, okay, and the door says, no, this room's busy. Things like that, you can see it, you're in the environment, you control the environment versus environment controlling you. So it's been really cool to see that shift of the TED Talk type spaces and where people come together to collaborate and to work and to connect again with people. Because for the last few years, so many of us, we get this is our connection. And so for me, I know when I'm home for 3 weeks or 4 weeks and I haven't traveled and seen a customer, I'm like, I got to have human connection somehow. And so I want to get out and do it. And so for companies that are putting money again into technology, we mentioned, they're slow to pay the bill, I think today. But we know from studies and different things that I've researched that CEOs are willing to invest in the right technology, but it has to have the ROI, like what that was mentioned before. So if we can find that and leverage it in a way that is engaging and gets employee engagement back up and morale, that's where people start investing. And so we have to look at these different ways to leverage that and maybe look into new ways to leverage those legacy endpoints, things like that, like the Ciscos and Polycoms of the world. But there's so many ways that you can do it now. So it's exciting to see that evolvement.
Yeah, great point. And you mentioned workflows, and that kind of brings, something that I've been hearing a lot, quite a bit in the last few years is ecosystem. And it's really bringing, UC&C, control, room control, everything into an overall ecosystem. And Sean, I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, but if you could expound on that, because it's bringing that all together, and the IT department and the AV department really need to work hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, I get excited when we start talking about designing these spaces in the AV ecosystem and connecting all the different dots together. And, really, to what Matt said, making these spaces accessible and building them out and really changing the way that they're really designed today in our post-COVID era. One thing I'll add to that is that we've got to expand these collaboration spaces to allow for multiple places to interface, right? That could be the podium, that could be the instructor's desk, that could be a conference room table, maybe in multiple places. Maybe it's also wireless connectivity that allows for people to cast and share different, PowerPoints or other types of things that they're sharing from iPads and other types of wireless devices. Tying this all together as well is an important piece, is the control system for this. In some ways, maybe it's automated, right? We plug in and things turn on and things auto preset to certain settings that we've kind of set these devices to do. Other times, we need to tie in other types of sources, perhaps document cameras, maybe different laptops or built-in room PCs. Maybe again, selecting between different things from the podium to the other spots that people are interfacing from. Maybe tying in as well lighting controls and different audio controls. And sometimes you get these spaces that have divisible walls and other components that really add a lot of complexity. And as much as we love to automate things as much as possible, sometimes you have to have the control piece. And again, this is a lot of what Atlona does and ties these rooms together and kind of adds those other components into the mix for all those other moving pieces that ties it all together in that AV ecosystem that we're talking about.
What I like about all of it is the flexibility which you just described, right? So that's actually what people want, what these spaces requires, the flexibility to be able to walk in today and use this area over here and use it in a specific way, and walk in tomorrow and use it in a different way, and actually being maybe in another part of that room. And with that flexibility comes a lot of, as you said, it comes a lot of equipment design requirements, and you have to think about what is flexible in this room, right? So I can move some things around. Some things are fixed installed, right? So how do I get the cameras, which are usually fixed installed? I need to design them in a way so that they can capture everything. The same goes at the end of the day for the audio. If I have speakers on the wall, how do I make sure that these speakers are playing the audio where it needs to be played in a certain use case and in a certain day? And the same with the microphones, right? So you have to think about this flexibility is being or needs to be supported by products which might actually be hard installed. Or if you don't hard install them, you need to make these products flexible so that they can actually follow you around. And that, again, it comes a lot with the design, and it also comes back to um, I said budget at the beginning because at some point that there was a discussion. There is a cost to all of it. It's all possible. We can have that flexible room, and it can start a meeting in 15 seconds, and we're happy to deliver it, build it for you, and deliver it to you.
Absolutely. So, looking at a couple, lots more questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get too many more, but this one I want to answer. Can you recommend any network training programs for AV professionals to better facilitate working with network staff? If you're not already familiar with Infocom, it's coming up in June, and you absolutely need to attend it. And I would say that for AV professionals as well as IT. It's really where it all comes together. There's go early because there's lots of really great sessions. And there's a ton of them. So go early.
Cindy,
That's, yeah.
I just saw this morning, Avixo just rolled out a new network for professional AV class.
Nice.
I saw it on LinkedIn. You may want to look it up, but yeah, that's a good example of leveraging Avixa to do some great training.
Absolutely. And it's not just at Infocom. Infocom, you're going to get the hands-on training, but Avixa has amazing training sessions all year long, different locations as well as online. So definitely check out that resource. So the parent to Infocom is avixa.org. I hope I got that right. I think I did. .org anyway. So it's AVIXA for anyone who's not familiar with it. So want to kind of come around. We actually are coming up towards the end here. So I want to ask each one of you, if you had a piece of advice when it comes to approaching UCC as a key takeaway for AV and IT folks in attendance, what would that be? And John, I'm going to start off with you.
I would say you need to look at holistically as much as possible. It sounds pretty basic, but it's true. The other thing we did not talk about that we should be talking about is cyber. And as we start adding more components onto the network, it's critical, particularly, people that are not in the IT organization need to get your cyber people involved, your security group, and make sure they're really comfortable with anything that's going on the network. And that includes digital signage and not just, endpoints with collaboration. We work with a lot of major corporations that nothing goes on their network unless we spend a lot of time with their security people and going through that. The other piece is, once again, keeping it up. What is your strategy on maintaining firmware, operating systems? If it's a Windows-based, what is your strategy to go forward and make sure you're putting that into your upgrade, or even on your core rooms, collaboration spaces? What rings are you attaching to as far as updated firmware and go forward? The last thing you want to walk in on a Tuesday morning, or updates go out Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and have a bunch of rooms down. So it's about the kind of the strategy of not just getting it up and going, but also how to keep it going. Nothing frustrates users more when they can't go into a room and use it immediately. So that's my advice, I guess.
Thank you. And I'm going to just fill in some answers to some questions here. Can you share any success stories or case studies of organizations that have implemented UC&C endpoints effectively? Absolutely. avnetwork.com, and that's the AV technology, my brand, as well as SEN. And you'll find lots of case studies there, as well as make sure you check out the handouts here and go to the websites of all the companies here, redthread.com, and actually at lona.com. Matt, what is your website?
rossvideo.com. Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I think it's Yamaha, not Yamaha UC, right? Holger?
It's uc.yamaha.com.
Okay. There we go. Alrighty. So next up, parting thoughts, sage advice that for the folks here, Sean.
For me, this is pretty simple. Focus on the end user experience first. How people are going to be, seeing and utilizing the different software, the different hardware, the different stuff that we're putting into these meeting spaces and collaboration spaces. In the end game, we want to make sure that they walk in, they have a very good user experience, and they want to use the equipment or the room or the software again, and not have a one-time bad experience and walk away from it. When we talk about all these networked AV and things becoming more involved with IT, make sure you leave expandability, in your network and the capability to add more endpoints, add more infrastructure, add more equipment, as time goes on. Also, that we need to create these spaces to be interoperable. Whereas you might be using Teams and only Teams internally, but you don't know when a guest is going to walk in and want to use Blue Jeans or Cisco or GoToMeeting or any of the other types of platforms out there. So leave that capability, in these spaces that we're designing, so that others can use other platforms and easily interface with the investment you've made in the equipment for those meeting spaces. And really let them use any flavor they'd like. Those are pretty simple thoughts, but I think that's the goal that we're trying to get out of this. Make it so that people can walk in, have a good experience, and use anything they'd like. And it's as simple as that.
Great advice. Another question I'm going to answer on my own here. What resources are available for further learning and best practices related to UC&C endpoint deployment and management? One, I would say make sure you connect with your local integrators. You'll again go back to avnetwork.com. We have the SEN top 50 integrators around the country and world, actually. Call manufacturers if there's a device or product that you really love. There isn't a manufacturer on this panel or anywhere that's not going to be really willing to help guide you through that process. So reach out to manufacturers. That's what they're here for, and your integrators. And check out avixa.com. I'll keep sending it back there. So also, up next, Matt, please. Sage advice.
Yeah, I'd say to expand on what's already been said about focusing on the end user and what their daily experience should look like and looks like today. The other side of the coin is, as providers to the company, and basically the rest of the company is your clients. Essentially, you serve them, and they're coming to you with requests. So you need a good partner to support you on the backside. So I'd say, along with asking all the right questions internally, make sure you partner with the right partner, integrator, manufacturer that can also scale with you. So as things evolve and needs change and more requests come in and flexibility is needed, make sure that you have a partner that you go to and they aren't just saying, this is how to do it, this is what you need to do, versus them asking you, how can we best serve you? And then you're able to ask them, how do you foresee growth? And this is where I want to start at the end, so that I can start today and know that I have a partner for the long haul instead of just checking a box and getting something done today. I think that's what everyone's looking for now, is the ways to be more flexible, and they want to scale and have that, ensure that their endpoints aren't going to need to be updated in 2 years. We're looking to 5 years, 10 years. How do we future proof? So I always start with the partner side. Am I getting the right partner? And if I can trust in the right partner, then I feel like I can be successful, and my company and teams will be successful. So I always go back to that, no matter if it's the integrator, the manufacturers, anything like that. Just make sure you have the right partners.
Great. Again, I'm going to kind of put together a few questions here, because there's a lot of questions that have come up about security, of course. And I know that if you, if you're IT and your AV folks are coming to you and saying, I want to put this endpoint on the network, go back to the manufacturer. Manufacturers will definitely work with you, and share any. They'll answer any questions that you have. And actually, if you would, from the manufacturers that we have here, Matt, if the question comes back to you, how do I know Ross Video endpoints and solutions are secure on my network? What's the answer there?
Yeah, we have a lot of customers right now that we can point you to, and we have those stories, and currently going through a lot of that right now with some bigger corporate customers around the country and in the globe. So again, it goes back to the partner. Am I willing to answer the question? If I'm not, then you should maybe go talk to the next guy. Find the partners that are willing to be transparent with you and have examples of how they've worked with companies and IT departments and things like that outside of what the normal scope might be.
Sean, how about if somebody comes out and says, what about security?
Security-wise, there's a lot of things that we can discuss there. One of the big points that I'd like to make is that supporting SSL, which is a transport layer that's a digital certificate that's embedded into many of the products that we're talking about and different devices that we're talking about. You need to allow for the certificate to be supported, on the different control systems, on the different products that we're discussing and embedding into these conference rooms. And that's a big piece as well, and as IT becomes more involved in the discussion and managing and monitoring and involving with these different network devices, the security layers and different things that we can embed into them are also a super important piece to make sure we're checking off, as we add these devices to the network and start utilizing them.
Great. So Holger, I'm going to actually ask you to comment on security and then also part with with what everyone needs to know about implementing UC&C.
Okay, so I start off with security question. So the answer there is yes, everything which was said before. I would also say make sure that the devices which get onto the network can be qualified radio servers or something like that. That actually you are able to identify that your device or that the devices which you're putting on as part of your AV solution can communicate with the security which you have on your network and actually be accepted within your network. Now, the other question about there were already so many answers about you need to make your room, of course, easy to be used. You need your room to be starting up quickly. I think the ROI, actually somebody said ROI, I like that. That's a great way of putting it. Is there really a return of investment? If I go into this room and I have a meeting, is this meeting successful? And successful doesn't mean that I could start it in 15 minutes. It means that whatever I said was understood at the far end. Whatever was said at the far end is understood over here. The data which I'm sharing is being shown on both sides. I can see who's on the far end. Whoever's on the far end can see me. So the important things really at the end of the day for a successful meeting are good audio in and out, good video in and out, and being able to capture the information that you want to share and deliver it to the far end. And that is something which you have to keep in mind when you design not just the solution, but when you look actually at a specific room. How does audio work in that specific room? How does video work in that specific room? How am I able to capture the CEO as well as the CFO who might be sitting at the other end of the table, right? Or how do I make sure that the person sitting in front of the table is understood the same way as the person who's sitting in the back of the table? And these are decisions and design questions which are not necessarily at this point, IT related or network related. They're actually room related. I need to make sure that the design of my system fits the room and the requirements for that room. And that's what I think is part of this whole discussion and the decision to make sure that you fit something to the room to have the best experience audio, video, content wise within that room.
Wonderful. Thank you. So before we get to announcing the winner of the gift card, I want to thank our sponsors at Lona, Ross Video, and Yamaha UC, and especially our panelists for their amazing insight. Sean Burnett, John Mitten, Matt Morgan, and last but never least, Holger Stoltz. Alrighty, drum roll, please. And I want to thank all of you for joining. The winner of the $250 Amazon gift card is Michael Ling from California. Yay! I wanted that. So thank you all. It was a great discussion. Questions that we didn't get to, our panelists will reach out and answer what they can. And thank you for joining today. Thank you for making this a very engaging hour, and let's keep the conversation going. Have a great rest of your day.